The French case is a classic example of what might be described as cultural monoism, right? So even though the constitution allows you to have religious freedom, right, but that religious freedom is being understood, as I said with the text previously. So constitution is also a text, and how it is read by the people, right, it is informed by the dominant cultural ethos. So they have a sense of what is normal and what is not normal. So women with a scarf, they appear to the dominant psychology as something which is abnormal. I think what is needed perhaps now, especially in the French case, but this is also applicable to the larger case, that we need to secularize secularism. By which I mean that the secular arrangement which has been made in different European nation states, it was born out of a very historically specific situation. Now that situation has changed, right? And one of the classic premise of any liberal constitution or liberalism at large is that it is, at least in its self-perception. So the liberal understanding of religion is that religion is closed, religious people cannot re-examine or examine their own premises, whereas liberalism allows you to re-examine your own premise, right? But I think something strange is happening in the European case. Many of the Muslim intellectuals who started living in the West, in Europe, they have revised several of their premises, right? But it is the liberals who are not willing to revise their own premises. So this whole secular arrangement, in the French case, you would not use the term secular but laïcité, it was born out of a very specific situation in which religious diversity was not the situation. Of course, you had Jews, right? But by and large, I mean, you had three set of population. You had the Gypsies, the Jewish population, and predominantly Christian population. And of course, this Christian population was split along several sect lines, right? What I also say in my book is that the situation of secularism in India and the laïcité or secularism in Europe at large, it has to be seen from the perspective of the religious minorities. So this famous case that in 1789, the time of the French Revolution, the principle of equality and liberty, it was not extended to the Jews on the same day as it was done to the rest of the population. It was delayed in the case of Jewish population by a few days. But what is interesting, when it was extended to the Jewish population, what is important is the perception of the Jewish population. And you have this rabbi called Isaac, and he says that, look, the revolutionary position was that you have to, if you want to gain equality, you have to sacrifice your religious identity. This is what the revolutionaries gave this option to the Jewish population. The Jewish population is saying that no, we want to be equal and we also want to retain our own religious identity, right? So this option which was given, right, this option itself is framed in a very binary language that, you know, you terminate, you abolish your identity in order to enjoy the fruit of, you know, equality. And I think the same, I mean, it is wrong to say that, you know, the same situation is repeating itself in contemporary times, but you do have a strong resonance of that kind of debate in contemporary Europe, that if Muslims want to be treated as equal, they have to give up their religious identity. But what is forgotten is that already many of the elements of European culture which is regarded as secular, is already informed by Christian traditions. So, examples of holiday would be one, but to give you another example which I always felt, you know, you live in Amsterdam, right? Suppose if you are not a Christian, you walk in the street, 2 weeks before Christmas, the street will tell you that a festival is going to come. The whole street was decorated, right? So even if you don't know what is Christmas, the street, the visuals of the street tells you that there is something distinct. And this happens even, you know, 2 weeks after Christmas. The decoration, everything, you know, the routine of the population changes, right? In contrast, you have this whole month of Ramadan, fasting, Eid comes, right? In the Dutch case, you know, I was teaching in Amsterdam University and then at Utrecht University. The university did not have any holiday, right? Although I could probably get, I could have applied for a leave on the Eid and probably I would have been granted. But the point is that in terms of this public sphere, Eid is not part of the Dutch culture. So you do not, you walk in the street and you don't feel that actually there is Eid, right? So you might say that no, we are very secular, right? But that is the self-perception. You know, it is, if I can draw a parallel, you know, when the British went to India, they clearly say that no, look, we are not religious, we are secular, right? So in any kind of debate, you have at least two parties. So this is the self-perception of Europe that we are secular, but we also need to ask these immigrants, the so-called immigrants, you know, the minorities, what do they think about this claim that we are secular, you know? So likewise, you know, a lot of these cultural elements are predominantly Christians, you know. So I think what probably is needed is an openness to religious diversity and a readiness to re-examine some of the premises. And that is why I am saying that there is a need to secularize secularism in the European context. In fact, it is not sufficiently secular. It is still built upon in wide variety of ways on the elements of that culture, you know, which by the way I don't think is necessarily negative, because in any case, you know, the laws, the rules that you have would be reflective of the society or of that culture. So what we need is to further democratize it, rather than saying that okay, no, this is something which is not negotiable, right? And that, by the way, is a strongly religious attitude which is being favored today in European context by people from the extreme right, and some of these people are also ex-leftist. And this goes back to this earlier point that I was trying to make, that whereas the religious people are showing willingness to negotiate, it is the so-called liberals and secularists who are not ready to re-examine their own premises, because I think the context in which we are living is radically significant, and accordingly this radically changed situation should also be reflected in the public sphere, in the kinds of rules that we make, right.